What if the reason your desire feels far away is because you keep placing it in the future? What if the secret is not to wait longer, work harder, or search for more signs, but to mentally move beyond the waiting altogether? Most people spend their lives hoping, wishing, and looking toward a future moment when everything will finally fall into place. They tell themselves that one day they will be happy, one day they will feel successful, one day they will feel secure. But as long as the desire remains in the future, the experience of fulfillment remains out of reach. Today, I want to share a powerful shift in perspective. Imagine that your desire did not happen tomorrow. Imagine it did not happen next month. Imagine it happened yesterday. How would you feel today if the dream had already come true? Would you still be anxious? Would you still be searching for evidence? Would you still be wondering when it will happen? Of course not. You would feel relief. You would feel gratitude. You would feel certainty. You would move through your day with the quiet confidence of someone who already has what they once desired. That is the secret of living from the end. It is choosing to identify with the fulfilled version of yourself now, rather than waiting for circumstances to grant you permission. So, for the next few moments, set aside your doubts, release the habit of waiting, open your mind to a new possibility, and ask yourself, what if it already happened? What if the version of you who has already succeeded is available right now? Let's begin. One of the greatest habits that keeps people separated from their desires is the habit of waiting. They wait for better circumstances. They wait for a sign. They wait for proof. They wait for some future moment when everything will finally come together. In doing so, they place their dreams on a distant horizon and spend their lives looking toward fulfillment rather than living from it. The problem is not that they have desires. The problem is that they continue identifying with the version of themselves who is still waiting. As long as you see yourself as someone who is trying to get something, you remain emotionally connected to the experience of not having it. Most people have been taught to think of success, abundance, love, and achievement as future events. They imagine these experiences existing somewhere ahead of them in time. Every day they wake up and remind themselves that what they want has not arrived yet. They measure the distance between where they are and where they want to be. They focus on what is missing. They count the days, the months, and sometimes even the years. Without realizing it, they strengthen the feeling of separation between themselves and their desire. The secret is to stop living in the state of waiting and begin occupying the end. To occupy the end means mentally and emotionally identifying with the version of yourself who has already achieved the goal. It means shifting your awareness away from the process of getting and placing it on the experience of already having. This is not about denying your current circumstances. It is about choosing a different point of view. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who hopes to become successful, you begin seeing yourself as someone who already is successful. Instead of feeling like a person searching for abundance, you begin feeling like a person who already possesses it. Think about how different your life would feel if your desire were already fulfilled. If the dream had already become reality, you would not spend your days worrying about whether it would happen. You would not constantly search for evidence. You would not feel desperate for signs. There would be a sense of relief. There would be a sense of certainty. There would be a natural confidence because the outcome would no longer be in question. These feelings reveal the state of consciousness you would occupy if your desire were already realized. Many people believe they must wait for circumstances to change before they can experience those emotions. Yet this creates a cycle that never ends. They postpone confidence until success arrives. They postpone gratitude until abundance appears. They postpone peace until their problems disappear. In reality, these states can be cultivated now. You can begin feeling the emotions of fulfillment before circumstances fully reflect them. This is what allows you to move from waiting into occupying the end. Imagine an actor stepping into a role. For the duration of the performance, the actor thinks, feels, and responds as the character. They do not constantly remind themselves that they are pretending. They fully immerse themselves in the identity they have chosen. In a similar way, occupying the end involves stepping into the identity of your fulfilled self. You begin thinking from that perspective. You begin making decisions from that perspective. You begin carrying yourself with the confidence of that perspective. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is this: if my desire were already fulfilled, how would I feel today? Notice that the question is not asking what you would do someday. It is asking how you would feel now. The answer often reveals a state of peace, gratitude, certainty, and trust. These are not emotions that must wait for the future. They are emotions you can begin cultivating immediately. Of course, there will be moments when old habits attempt to pull you back into waiting. You may find yourself wondering when things will happen. You may become focused on current circumstances. You may feel tempted to measure progress by appearances. When this happens, gently return to the end. Return to the fulfilled version of yourself. Return to the feeling that it is already done. Each time you do this, you strengthen a new way of thinking. The truth is that the future does not have to remain a distant destination. You can begin experiencing the essence of it now. You can stop identifying with lack and start identifying with fulfillment. You can stop living as someone who is waiting and start living as someone who already possesses what they desire. Because the moment you occupy the end, something profound begins to change. Your thoughts become different. Your expectations become different. Your energy becomes different. And over time, the outer world begins reflecting the inner state you have chosen to embrace. So stop waiting for the future to bring you what you desire. Step into the reality of fulfillment today. Occupy the end, live from completion, and allow your life to unfold from that powerful new perspective. One of the most powerful mental shifts you can make is to assume that your desire happened yesterday. At first, this idea may seem unusual because most people are accustomed to placing their dreams somewhere in the future. They think of success as something that will happen one day. They think of abundance as something they are working toward. They think of fulfillment as a distant destination they hope to reach eventually. Because of this, they remain emotionally connected to waiting. Their thoughts constantly revolve around when it will happen, how it will happen, and whether it will happen at all. Yet the moment you assume it happened yesterday, everything changes. Imagine for a moment that the dream you have been pursuing was fulfilled yesterday. Not tomorrow, not next year, yesterday. How would you feel today? You would wake up differently. You would not begin your day wondering whether your desire was coming. You would not be searching for signs or looking for evidence. You would not be asking questions about timing. The uncertainty would be gone because the event would already be part of your experience. There would be nothing left to chase. There would be nothing left to prove. You would simply live your life from the awareness that it had already happened. Think about the emotional difference between wanting something and already having experienced it. Wanting is often accompanied by anticipation, concern, and sometimes even frustration. Having, on the other hand, creates a feeling of relief. It creates gratitude. It creates calmness. When something has already happened, you stop obsessing over it because it no longer feels distant. It becomes part of your reality. This emotional shift is one of the reasons the concept of assuming it happened yesterday is so powerful. It moves you out of the state of longing and into the state of fulfillment. Many people unknowingly keep their desires away from themselves because they continuously reinforce the idea that fulfillment belongs in the future. Every day they repeat thoughts such as, "I hope it happens soon," "maybe next month," or "I wonder when things will change." While these thoughts may seem harmless, they strengthen the feeling that the desired reality is not here yet. The mind continues operating from the assumption that fulfillment remains separate from the present moment. Assuming it happened yesterday interrupts this pattern by placing fulfillment behind you instead of ahead of you. Imagine someone who recently achieved a major goal. Perhaps they completed an important project, received exciting news, or experienced a breakthrough they had been hoping for. The day after it happens, they are no longer focused on obtaining it. Their attention shifts because the goal has already been accomplished. They carry a different energy. There is less tension. There is more confidence. There is more peace. This is the state you are invited to adopt, not because you are pretending, but because you are training yourself to identify with fulfillment rather than lack. One of the reasons this approach feels so liberating is that it removes the pressure associated with constant striving. When people remain focused on getting something, they often create resistance through worry and impatience. They become overly concerned with every detail. They analyze every circumstance. They become emotionally dependent on immediate results. But when you assume it happened yesterday, the pressure begins to dissolve. The desire no longer feels far away. It feels familiar. It feels natural. It feels integrated into your sense of self. This does not mean you stop taking action or stop pursuing meaningful goals. It means your actions are no longer driven by desperation. Instead, they are guided by confidence. You begin making choices from the perspective of someone who already trusts the outcome. Your thoughts become more aligned with possibility. Your emotions become more stable. Your expectations become more positive. Of course, there will be moments when old habits return. You may catch yourself worrying about timing. You may become focused on appearances. You may feel tempted to return to the state of waiting. Whenever this happens, gently ask yourself a simple question: how would I feel today if it had already happened yesterday? Allow the answer to guide you back to the state of fulfillment. Return to the feeling of relief. Return to gratitude. Return to certainty. The true power of this practice lies in its ability to transform your relationship with your desire. Instead of seeing it as something distant, you begin experiencing it as something already woven into your consciousness. Instead of living in anticipation, you begin living in completion. Instead of waiting for the future, you begin drawing strength from the assumption that the desired outcome is already part of your story. So stop placing your dream endlessly ahead of you. Assume it happened yesterday. Feel the relief. Feel the gratitude. Feel the certainty. Carry yourself as someone who has already experienced what they once desired. Because the more natural that state becomes, the more naturally your outer world begins to reflect it. And that is the true secret of living from the end. One of the most powerful influences in your life is something that most people rarely pay attention to: your inner conversations. Throughout the day, you are constantly talking to yourself. Sometimes the conversations are obvious, and other times they happen so quietly that you barely notice them. Yet these internal dialogues shape your beliefs, influence your emotions, and determine how you see yourself and the world around you. If you want to live from the end, one of the most important changes you can make is to ensure that your inner conversations reflect fulfillment rather than lack. Most people unknowingly use their inner conversations to reinforce the very circumstances they wish to escape. They spend their days mentally repeating stories of struggle, delay, disappointment, and limitation. They imagine conversations where they explain why things are not working. They rehearse fears about the future. They relive problems from the past. Without realizing it, they continually return to the state of wanting, hoping, and waiting. Their inner dialogue becomes a constant reminder of what they believe they do not have. Imagine someone who desires financial abundance but spends every day internally saying, "Money is hard to come by, nothing ever changes," or "I never get ahead." Even if they occasionally think positive thoughts, their dominant inner conversation continues supporting limitation. The same principle applies to every area of life. A person who desires success but constantly imagines failure, a person who desires love but continually expects rejection, or a person who desires peace but repeatedly focuses on problems is maintaining an inner dialogue that contradicts their desired reality. Living from the end requires a different approach. It requires speaking to yourself from the perspective of fulfillment. If your desire were already realized, how would your inner conversations change? What would you say to yourself if the goal had already been achieved? How would you mentally respond to daily situations? These questions are important because they help reveal the difference between thinking from lack and thinking from fulfillment. Consider a person who has already achieved a dream they once considered impossible. Their internal dialogue is naturally different from someone who is still struggling with doubt. They are not constantly asking whether it will happen because, in their mind, it already has. Their thoughts carry confidence. Their expectations are more positive. Their conversations with themselves reflect certainty rather than uncertainty. This shift in inner speech influences every aspect of their experience. One of the reasons inner conversations are so powerful is that they occur repeatedly. A single thought may pass quickly, but a conversation that repeats day after day gradually becomes a belief. Over time, what you consistently tell yourself begins feeling true. This is why it is so important to become aware of the stories you are telling yourself. If those stories are rooted in fear, they strengthen fear. If they are rooted in confidence, they strengthen confidence. Imagine waking up each morning and mentally speaking from the reality you desire. Instead of saying, "I hope things improve," you begin thinking, "Everything is unfolding perfectly." Instead of asking, "When will my breakthrough come?" you begin affirming, "I am grateful that things are already moving in my favor." Instead of focusing on obstacles, you begin focusing on possibilities. These may seem like small changes, but they create a profound shift in consciousness over time. Another important aspect of inner conversations is emotional tone. It is not enough to simply repeat words. The feeling behind those words matters. Conversations that reflect fulfillment carry a sense of calmness, gratitude, and certainty. They feel different from conversations rooted in desperation or fear. When you speak internally from a place of fulfillment, you begin experiencing the emotional state of someone who already possesses